Alright, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews, and we're back with more Better Call Saul. We're doing episode 4 of season 5. It is called Namaste. Full spoilers if you've not seen this episode yet. Yeah, so this is when you get to like episodes 4, 5, and 6 of a show, you get this area of the story a lot of times where you've set up at the beginning of the series, right? We had our black and white, we had our like long black and white section that's setting up future events for what I believe will be probably like one of the last couple of episodes will probably be dealing with that of the entire series. So we've gotten that set up. We've seen where everybody was at from the end of last season into this season, and we've started to see, like, we've started setting up conflicts. Like for Kim, it's Mesa Verde. It's dealing with Saul, with Jimmy becoming Saul. With Jimmy, his conflict is always himself, dealing with himself. We've also got Mike dealing with the aftermath of killing Werner. We've got Gus dealing with Lalo. We've got Nacho dealing with Gus and Lalo. So we've set up all of our players and our conflicts, and now we're building those problems. We're setting up more tension. We're setting up more where the story's going, and getting so by the time the season is over, we'll have resolved all that. But that's what happens in episodes 4, 5, 6 kind of area in shows like this, where the plot starts to slow down a little to focus more on characters and more conflict, where you start to get frustrated a little bit. Not frustrated in a bad way, but like you start to see characters do things that you go, why are you doing this? But in the end, it all pays off in the long run. And so while there's great moments in this and great character moments, we don't see like huge leaps and bounds forwards in the story. So, and that's why I used to say things like, people use the terms filler and stuff, but these aren't filler. These are all character. These are all important character moments that pay off later. And so when we set up this, what always happens in a lot of episodes of like Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, is we get this beginning that sets up something later. Kind of like how last episode we had that long beginning about 50% off. That pays off here. Although I would have thought that should have been in last episode. But so in this, he's in a pawn shop. Jimmy's in a pawn shop, and he's looking basically for the perfect weight. That's what I called it. Immediately you could just tell that it didn't really matter what it was that he was holding. He was looking for nothing but the right heft. Because it wasn't, I didn't think it was either to defend himself or to fight anybody with either. Jimmy's not a fighter, really, unless, it really comes down to it. So he gets 3 bowling balls, and we just have to wait to see. Holy moly, while I'm recording this, I'm getting sent like 1 billion notifications on my YouTube from my email. I've never had this happen so much. I'm like about ready to turn off my notifications. This is crazy. How many emails did I get last night? Anyway, I'm going to pause this real quick. Turn down my backlight and turn off the notifications because my emails just kept repeating on a loop. Holy God, that's never happened before. So we open with our kind of like our hangover. They didn't, they were clearly having some fun last night when they were whipping the bottles over the side of the balcony, and probably proceeded to drink a lot more. But they wake up in a certain kind of disarray that kind of makes you think that they were having some pretty let's call it exuberant lovemaking, where they just kind of passed out where they're at. So maybe some more drinks were involved. They do seem really sleepy over spitting out their tooth, brushing their teeth. And so they wake up to the aftermath of it all, right? They're kind of groggy, but they get outside and they see all the broken glass. And here's again like a great distinction between Jimmy and Kim. Is that Jimmy sees the glass and says, somebody else will take care of this. This is, just par for the course for the apartment complex. You know, they've got people for this. And he just goes off on his day. Doesn't think any more about it. Like, Kim can't do that kind of thing. That's just not her character's way. She feels bad. She doesn't like to have to have somebody else clean up her mess. And so she's got like the long broom sweeping up all the broken glass. She feels bad for putting somebody else out, while Jimmy just kind of keeps on going. And it's a really big, you know, distinction as far as these two characters go, because she's always cleaning up the messes. So it's not just her part of her character, but it's also like this metaphor that Kim is always having to clean up the mess that Jimmy makes, and her. In this case, they're both responsible for this. Yeah, it's whatever. But here we are in the next scene, where our dipshits from last episode, who went on that drug and alcohol-fueled bender, finally got arrested. We never see them get arrested. I don't think we really need it anymore with these characters, to be honest with you. Especially in this scene, where they're just a couple of morons who are use their 50% off coupon to get Saul in the room. And one of the biggest takeaway, I think, in this scene really isn't how funny it is that he's wheeling and dealing and all the things that he says to these guys and how they don't want to be in rehab. It's the sentence, you have to sound like you mean it. Basically, kind of like how Saul does things, how Jimmy does things, how he fakes things. You have to make people believe it. You have to sound sincere. You have to put on the show. You have to make, you know, just lie. But make it believable. Because it doesn't really matter what you say as long as people believe you. And so he's even able to convince, he uses it on them. He says it to them about rehab. They turn him down when they find out that $4,000 is what he's going to charge, which is 50% off in his opinion. And so when they decide they want to go with the, I like that, the public pretender, is that what he called him? He turns around and acts like he's going to leave. He says it, you know, like he means it, when it's all still an act, and they're too dumb to notice that that's what he's really doing to them. Is he's giving them an example of what he just told them to do, and he just gets them right back in. So it's pretty genius writing also. Now Howard's meeting. This was one thing I was really curious about from the trailer more than anything, was what was Howard's meeting going to be like with Jimmy. You know, he introduces him to a Judge Lawler. You know, he says this little quippy, you know, nice gavel work. You know, because this is like, I think he said, a federal judge. So it's like this meet and greet about who is Saul Goodman. Like, what's he about? What is he doing? And he's like, he's the guy who fights for the, you know, tries to right the wrongs and injustice and all this. And it's all just empty, you know. It doesn't really mean anything, you know. It's Jimmy's got a chip on his shoulder, and it led to being creating Saul Goodman with what happened with his brother, what happened with Hamlin McGill. It's him feeling, you know, pushed around and cast aside and looked down upon, even though he does all this to himself. And you wonder, like, because Howard seems on the surface to wanting to make it right. He seems like he's getting back his status and building his law firm up again. He's even the suit, if you guys noticed, he's wearing the suit that Jimmy, I think, was trying to make look like his way back in the day, like in season 1 times, maybe season 2. And Howard says, we need somebody like you. We did you wrong. We did you dirty. And we want you to, I didn't take you seriously, and we want you to consider becoming part of the team. Now, is this Howard just trying to fill the McGill in the Howard, Hamlin, and McGill? I don't think completely so. I think that he means it. I think that, you know, him remembering, like Jimmy remembering the girl's name from before shows that Howard was paying attention. But at the same time, I'm starting to wonder if maybe Howard's trying to blow his own life up. And maybe it's his way of getting out of the law game, is by bringing in somebody like Jimmy, who will eventually blow the whole firm up with some case, some wild case where he'll do something to mess it all up. Maybe subconsciously Howard wants to blow it all up. I don't know. It's a theory, because again, Howard is not in Better, Breaking Bad. Why would he be? But something has to happen to Hamlin and McGill. I think something really drastic has to happen to Howard, and I think that if with what happens at the end of the episode, maybe not, but I'm just leaving the door open for more possibilities. Which is if Jimmy were to go work for Hamlin as Saul, that's going to blow up the whole company probably. And so he keeps it in mind. And I don't know. He says you don't wait for things to happen, you make them happen. And when he says that, I kind of feel like he's saying, it's like he knows that he bends the rules to get things done, which means he knows that if he came to work there, it would be a disaster eventually. So I don't know. Kim coming up with her plan for Mesa Verde to skip Mr. Acker's property. There was no way that I saw, that this scene was going to end any other way. It was her desperately trying to convince some really rich people into doing the right thing, doing a nice thing, when they're not interested in doing the nice thing or the right thing. It's like, well, is it ours? Is it, does the law say it's ours? Using the law to, yeah, she's like, right, legally. She doesn't say the words like ethically or morally or, look, why do we have to do this? How many banks do we need? How many people do we need to pay off? Why can't we let this guy just have his land? But that's not how businesses see it. You're just another thing in their way. You don't really mean anything. You aren't really a person to them. You are a check mark on the way to another bank. Like, you just have to be pushed out. They even say, like, we offered him more than anybody else, but that more was nothing compared to what they have that they could offer this guy. And so that unfeeling corporate bank feel, it's finally crushing Kim to the point where, because all the pro bono work she does, all the good she feels from doing that. It's kind of interesting, because people always strive to get to that kind of job, right? And then once you get there, not every person that gets to that point suddenly goes, oh, I've made it. I don't need to look anymore. She's one of those people who got to where she wanted to be and then realized once she got there that where she was before wasn't that bad. And it made you feel good as a person. And she's finally getting to that point, because when you look at her face after they turn her down and they just go right back to business as usual, that's the look of someone who's about to quit her job or blow it all up. That last look before they cut. That, I can't do it. Maybe it'll play behind me and I'll point it out when it comes up. But, the Namaste that's on Hamlin's license plate, I think is like, he looks at that and it really kind of sets up the gears turning in his head. Okay, so this is the scene I'm talking about. So I'll point it out when she gets that look on her face. Mike. Poor Mike. Goes. I was actually shocked that he just shows up. Just like, hi, I'm here. I'm here to babysit. And it's like, she's being really cool. She's being way cooler than she needs to be. Because how he acted, maybe she wasn't there to see it, but how he acted, like, I'm sure her daughter would have told by the look on her face, by the tears and the confusion that a child would have, and Pop suddenly turning hard on her. Kids remember that shit. Everyone remembers stuff like that. That's the stuff that always sticks in our brains, is those moments of, like when you're stunned into realizing, holy crap, there's something wrong with my grandfather, that kind of thing. So when he's like, I'm fine, that I'm fine quickly turns into I'm fine into I'm fine. But it's like every bit of anybody trying to tell him, take a breather, take a break. What if she brings up Maddie again? Like, people not believing in him, they were not believing in him for a reason. Here he is clear. He won't tell anybody what's going on. He feels like he can't. I mean, I guess he should go see a shrink or something, or a priest. I don't know. There is, like, Mike is, like, takes all that stuff that he does and he just lets it sit inside him to where it, he's going to drown in it. As we see what happens later in Breaking Bad, I mean, we know he never gets out of this life. And so, what does he do when he's finally sent away in a rage? He goes looking for trouble, for punishment. He wasn't enough to be turned away by his, daughter-in-law, but now he goes back to those guys, and while he puts up a good fight, he takes that beating and then gets stabbed. And, wakes up in the middle of nowhere. Now that's a story. How did he get there? Who found him there? That's normally it would be where we end it, right? The end of the episode, but it's not. Like, I just kind of took Mike's story and ran with it. So Kim goes to see Jimmy in court, where he plays this great old switcheroo where, oh, this is not really my client. Will the real client please stand up? I thought that was pretty genius. And I mean, the whole court and the jury are all like, oh my God, like, but he's not wrong. Here's the look. That's the look. I mean, it was fantastic watching it. Just, I was wondering what it was going to be. Oh, you think this is my client? Will the real defendant please stand up? That was great. So after getting a chiding and still getting a mistrial, you see that being Saul Goodman's working for him. And so she asks him to help her with Mr. Acker so that they can fuck over Mesa Verde. If she's not going to outright quit yet, if she's not going to outright blow up her job, she's going to find somebody who will do it for her. And so Jimmy goes to Mr. Acker and shows him a man fucking a horse. And he says, I'm that man, and Mesa Verde's the horse, and I will do whatever it takes to fuck them over. Pretty much all he had to say. I'm sure there was a lot more eloquent words as he walked away. I'm sure he said a lot of nice things that a guy like Mr. Acker would respond to. But in the end, he got it done, and so now he is going to defend Mr. Acker from big old bad Mesa Verde. And if anybody can get him out of it, it's Saul, Jimmy. But will this mark the end of Kim's career at Mesa Verde? Is she letting Jimmy blow up her job without her having to actually do anything? It'll just be perception. It'll be how they see it. That your boyfriend is, running, like, she probably couldn't even work on that case because of a conflict of interest. So the best lawyer that could defend their company against him, she couldn't be used, right? So Kim's really, man. So the last thing really, well, before the very last thing, is Gus Fring waiting for his phone call as Hank Schrader and Gomi are staking out the dead drops. And it shows again the level of what Gus is willing to do to get the suspicion off of him that he's up to anything, even knowingly. And you can see the anger in him, the quiet rage of Gus Fring losing almost $1 million and feeling like this is the only way he can. He has to play the long game. He has to take the hurt. He has to take the hits. to get all suspicion off of him, because in the end he wants to be the top dog. But in order to be that top dog, he has to be smart. He has to do the things that the other people won't do or not willing to do, which is lose a lot of money in order to get what you want. And so the DEA and Hank, as usual, like throughout the whole story, he's being used or being duped by someone, not understanding the bigger game that he's in. You know, he has no idea. Hank has no idea. He never really does until it's too late, that people like Gus Fring are pulling the strings so well because they're willing to do what other people can't or won't. And it's that whole thing where he takes it out on his employee. And what I always notice is Gus is always very good to his employees. But this is that point where he's, if it's not perfect, you know, it's the one thing he can control right now is his chicken business. And so if the drug game right now is going to be imperfect, that damn oiler, that fryer, is going to be perfect, even if he has to do it himself. And so he's being a lot harder in a quiet, you know, that quiet way on his employee, who is desperately trying to get his manager's approval. Otherwise, what person would do that? I certainly, if my boss said, this is acceptable, peace out, I'm punching out. I'm not sitting there scrubbing and putting in all that elbow grease for somebody who's not even going to give you anything at the end of it. And when he cracks the phone after they find out, you know, that the money's gone, you can just see the rage in his face. And I would like to say more about Hank and all that, because it's they have a funny moment. It's good banter. But it really, you know, it's just, they're just there to further the plot of Gus Fring along. The culvert thing, and it sounds like a Dutch word for crotch rot, and you know, your mama joke, basically, you know, your left hand is whatever they said, tired, always tired. So I mean, those scenes are great. They're filled with levity that you need, but they think they're doing their job right, and really they're just pawns. They're just pawns, and Dean Norris and Stephen Quesada are doing great. Again, you just have to realize that while we're enjoying their performances and their back and forth, and it's great to see them back, the reality is it means nothing in the long run. For you know, they'll never get their man, and it's kind of sad. And so the very last thing is bowling balls for Howard. That I guess this is Jimmy's answer without answering him, that he throws the bowling balls into his car and walks away. Now, will he still take the job? I don't know. I think he just likes fucking with Howard. I think, you know, Howard just reminding him of everything is just, he can't help it. I don't know. I really don't have anything else to say about that scene. It was kind of surprising that that's what the bowling ball payoff was for. Just to hurt Howard more. And I guess it's just, again, just showing Jimmy's hurt. Like, too little too late, pal. You know, Charlie Hustle still has enough hustle to come to your house in the middle of the night and chuck bowling balls at your Namaste car. So anyway, I actually didn't know I would be talking for 23 minutes about this episode, but here we are. So, and now if I can get my camera to stop blacking out on me. Alright, everybody, so that's Namaste. I think we covered about everything. If you like this review, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Share these videos, please, with people that like Better Call Saul. I noticed that of all the things on my channel that I get reports on every month from YouTube, the shares are the smallest thing, and I think the likes are great, the subscribes are great. Let's make this audience bigger for these shows that we all like to talk about. Let's make sure that as many people are reached as possible, and I would really appreciate it. So you can also find me on Twitter at reviews_gun. Otherwise, this is Rob at Smirking Gun Review saying we'll be back with episode 5 next week. Otherwise, check out more stuff on the channel, and we'll see you next week. Bye.